talking with Derek Thomas this morning with Thomas Landscapes. You know, this is, well, I guess every part of the year, everybody's kind of has questions about what they can do. And we like to do the Ask the Garden Guy. You've got some pretty good questions, and I read through them, and I thought, wow, well, okay, this is pretty much a question I have all the time. So let's go ahead and get started with the first one. This is about a row house?
This is about a row house, and just to remind the viewers, they can tweet these to me now, too. It's at Thomas Garden Guy. I try to be a good tweeter, so you know, we'll answer your questions. Yeah, the first one's about a row house, and it's that, you know, that space between the sidewalk and the street gets over neglected, and they wanted to know what they could put in there that would withstand the traffic, along with, you know, our four-legged friends and some neglect. And I put together some plants that are decorative, but yet really, really hardy. First of all, liriope, and this time of the year, liriope is just going into bloom. It's a workhorse of a plant. It can withstand drought. It can withstand foot traffic. The barberries are really, really tough little guys. You know, you can get some color introduced into that tree box by using those.
A little prickly, though.
Yeah, they've got a little bit of thorns there, but you know, it's not a bad plant if you're putting it in the tree box. And also, some of your evergreens, like this blue star juniper. It's a really neat plant. It's a low-growing plant. And the one thing that you want to make sure before you plant out any of those tree box areas, whether you're in DC, Maryland, Virginia, or any of the viewing areas, is that you check your local laws as to what's permitted for planting there.
Now I have these two, and I just want to let people know they are neglected a lot, and they are still surviving. So go right ahead. That's a good idea. All right, let's go to the second one. Somebody wants to know what I can plant right now, to kind of get the garden going and looking good.
Right, and you know, we were talking about this before. We're in that weird transitory mode. It's not quite fall, and summer's like unofficially over. Well, you know, there's a lot of stuff that you can get into the garden, and I think this particular person has a function coming up, and they said, you know, the perennials are done. They want to make it attractive, but something that will also give them some bang for their buck. So, you know, plants like this Nandina, this is a firepower Nandina. This is a great plant. It's got this chartreuse foliage. As fall comes along, it's going to turn into a brilliant red and copper tone, and it keeps its leaves all winter, so it's really attractive now and throughout the winter. Things like asters and chrysanthemums have started making their appearance in garden centers. The nice thing about this aster is that once it gets done blooming out, since they've kind of forced it to bloom early, you can cut it back by half. And if you do that, the plant will flush out and most likely give you a second blooming.
Okay.
So that's a nice thing. And then if you want to take a chance with pansies, you can, or some of the ornamental grasses. And the reason I say take a chance with the pansies is because it's still a little bit warm to be putting them in.
Okay, that's true. All right, our last question here is an interesting one. I've never heard anybody talk about this. They say, my orchid has sticky leaves and drips sticky stuff on the table. Is this normal? I would say no.
This is from one of our viewers, Stephanie, and I promised I'd give her a shout out. And she, you know, she commented that there was sticky stuff oozing from the leaves of the orchid and actually falling onto her table. Your orchid should not be oozing stickiness, and most likely, I didn't see the plant, but she either had scale or mealy. Those are two insects that suck the sugars from plants. They particularly like orchids, and you will get that stickiness because what it is as they're feeding on the sugars, they're overfeeding, and some of that sugar is falling onto the surfaces. Your orchid should be very, very clean. The leaves should be, you know, the new leaves should be nice and shiny. They should be, you shouldn't really have any type of blemishes on the leaves. One of the things that you want to make sure with orchids is that you do not water them with cold water in the evening, because that can give spotting to the leaves. But you should not see any kind of dripping sap or anything from your orchid plants.
Can it be saved, though, if it already has that?
You can use an alcohol solution, and if you see the bugs, actually put alcohol on them, and that usually renders them, you know, non-existent. But sometimes it's just a little bit
too much work.
Yeah, well, and particularly, you know, it's about 20 or 30 bucks for an orchid, and if it's got a problem and you're going to be spending a lot,
another one.
Yeah, just get yourself another one.
All right, Derek Thomas with Thomas Landscapes. Your Twitter again?
It's at Thomas Garden Guy, or send us the questions through the Fox5.
Yes, myfoxdc.com. All right, back to you, Allison and Tony.
All right, thank you very much. And I happen to know that Sarah loves those orchids, but they sometimes go wrong for her.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
Okay. Well, they call